My wife's best friend told me about her affair, thinking I already knew. Some secrets are so well kept that even the people closest to them assume everyone else already knows the truth. When someone's best friend casually mentions intimate details about their life, expecting you to be in on the secret, the revelation can be more devastating than any deliberate confession. There's something particularly crushing about discovering that your spouse's betrayal was common knowledge among their inner circle while you remained completely in the dark, living your life under the assumption that your marriage was solid and your trust was deserved. The most painful betrayals often come wrapped in ordinary conversations. A casual comment, an offhand remark, an assumption that you're already aware of information that destroys everything you thought you knew about your relationship. When the person delivering the news has no intention of hurting you, when they genuinely believe they're just acknowledging something everyone already knows, the impact can be even more devastating than a deliberate revelation. I'm Ryan, 31 years old, and I work as a mechanical engineer for an aerospace company in Seattle. My wife Amanda and I have been married for 5 years, together for 7. She's 29 and works as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit organization. We own a small house in a quiet neighborhood. I've been talking about starting a family and what I thought was a solid, trusting relationship built on open communication and shared goals for our future together. Amanda's best friend since college is Jessica, a 30-year-old graphic designer who lives about 20 minutes away from us. They've maintained a close friendship for over 8 years, talking almost daily, meeting for lunch or drinks at least twice a week, and sharing the kind of intimate details about their lives that best friends typically share. I've always appreciated their friendship and never felt threatened by their closeness. In fact, I thought it was healthy that Amanda had such a strong support system outside of our marriage. Jessica has always been friendly toward me, including me in group activities, asking about my work and interests, and treating me like an integral part of Amanda's life rather than an obstacle to their friendship. We'd all spent countless evenings together, dinner parties, movie nights, weekend trips, and I considered Jessica not just Amanda's best friend, but a friend of our marriage. She'd been our maid of honor, helped us move into our house, and was someone we both trusted completely. Last Saturday afternoon, Amanda was working a weekend event for her nonprofit, and I was at Home Depot picking up supplies for a bathroom renovation project we'd been planning. I was in the plumbing aisle, comparing different shower fixtures, when I heard someone call my name from behind. Ryan, hey, how are you doing? It was Jessica, pushing a cart full of paint supplies and home decoration items. She looked genuinely happy to see me, with her usual bright smile and enthusiastic energy. Jessica, hi, I responded, glad to see a familiar face during what had become a frustrating shopping trip. I'm good, just trying to figure out shower fixtures. How about you? Oh, you know, the usual weekend projects, she said, gesturing to her cart full of supplies. I'm finally repainting my living room. It's only taken me 6 months to choose a color. We chatted for a few minutes about home improvement projects, her work, and general life updates. Then Jessica's expression shifted slightly, taking on a more serious, almost conspiratorial tone. How are you handling everything with Amanda, by the way? She asked, lowering her voice and moving slightly closer. I know this whole situation with Derek has been really stressful for both of you. I stared at her, completely confused. I'm sorry, what situation with Derek? I had no idea who Derek was or what situation Jessica was referring to. Amanda had never mentioned anyone named Derek to me. Jessica's face immediately changed, her eyes widening as she realized she'd said something wrong. The color drained from her cheeks, and she looked like someone who'd just accidentally revealed a surprise party or let slip a secret she was supposed to keep. Oh, she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the background noise of the store. Oh no, you don't know. The way she said those 3 words, you don't know, sent a chill through my entire body. There was something in her tone, a combination of horror and pity, that made it clear whatever she'd assumed I knew was something significant and devastating. Jessica, I have no idea what you're talking about, I said, setting down the shower fixture I'd been holding and giving her my full attention. Who is Derek, and what situation are you referring to? She looked around the store as if hoping to find an escape route, then back at me with an expression of pure panic. Ryan, I thought. Amanda said she was going to tell you everything. She said you guys were working through it together. Working through what? I asked, though a terrible suspicion was already forming in my mind. Jessica, I need you to tell me exactly what you're talking about. She took a deep breath, clearly struggling with whether to continue or try to backtrack from what she'd already revealed. Derek he's a guy from Amanda's work. They've been involved for about 3 months now. The word involved hit me like a physical blow. In the context of our conversation, there was only one thing it could mean. My wife had been having an affair for 3 months, and her best friend had assumed I knew about it. Involved how? I asked, needing to hear it stated explicitly, even though I already understood what Jessica was telling me. They're having an affair, she said quietly, looking down at her hands. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I really thought you knew. Amanda told me that you two had talked about it, and that you were trying to work things out. I never would have brought it up if I'd known you were still in the dark. I stood in the middle of Home Depot, surrounded by plumbing supplies and weekend shoppers, processing the information that my wife of 5 years had been cheating on me with a co-worker for 3 months, and that her best friend had been under the impression that this was common knowledge. How long have you known? I asked, trying to understand the full scope of what had been hidden from me. Since it started, Jessica admitted, her voice filled with guilt and regret. Amanda has been talking to me about it the whole time. She said she was confused about her feelings, that she and Derek had this incredible connection, but that she loved you too and didn't know what to do. Every word made the betrayal worse. Not only had Amanda been having an affair, but she'd been discussing it in detail with Jessica for months, processing her feelings and getting advice, while I remained completely unaware that my marriage was falling apart. And you thought I knew about this? I asked, still trying to understand how such a massive deception could have been sustained. Amanda told me last month that she'd confessed everything to you, Jessica said, tears starting to form in her eyes. She said you guys were going to counseling and trying to work through it. She said you were being really understanding and supportive while she figured out what she wanted to do. The lies kept getting deeper. Not only had Amanda been cheating on me and discussing it with Jessica, she'd been lying to Jessica about having told me, creating an elaborate fiction about our marriage being in counseling and me being supportive of her affair. Jessica, we've never been to counseling, I said. Amanda has never mentioned Derek to me. I had no idea any of this was happening until you just told me. The horror on Jessica's face was genuine and heartbreaking. She realized that she'd been manipulated by Amanda just as much as I had, used as a confidant and source of support for an affair that was based on lies to everyone involved. Ryan, I don't know what to say, she whispered. I feel terrible. I never would have. If I'd known you didn't know, I never would have said anything. This isn't how you should have found out. But I was grateful that I had found out, even if the circumstances were painful and awkward. Jessica, this isn't your fault, I said, trying to reassure her while processing my own emotional turmoil. You thought you were being supportive of something I already knew about. Amanda is the one who lied to both of us. We stood there in uncomfortable silence for a moment, both struggling with the implications of what had just been revealed. Jessica looked devastated, clearly realizing that her best friend had been using her as a cover for lies and deception that extended far beyond just the affair itself. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. I don't know yet, I said honestly. I need to go home and process this. But Jessica, thank you for telling me, even though it was accidental. I needed to know. She nodded, still looking stricken with guilt and regret. If there's anything I can do, I know this is probably the end of my friendship with Amanda, but if you need someone to talk to who knows the whole situation. I thanked her and left the store without buying anything, driving home in a daze while trying to figure out how to confront Amanda about what I'd learned. The betrayal felt multi-layered, not just the affair itself, but the lies to Jessica, the fictional counseling sessions, the elaborate deception that had allowed Amanda to maintain her affair while keeping me completely in the dark. When I got home, Amanda was still at her nonprofit event, which gave me time to think about how I wanted to handle the confrontation. Part of me wanted to call her immediately and demand an explanation, but I decided it would be better to wait until she got home so we could have the conversation in person. 3 hours later, Amanda walked through our front door with her usual cheerful demeanor, chatting about how successful the fundraising event had been and how grateful she was to have such a supportive job that allowed her to make a difference in the community. The disconnect between her happy, innocent performance and what I now knew about her secret life was jarring and painful. How was Home Depot? She asked, settling onto our couch and looking around for whatever project supplies I'd supposedly purchased. Did you find everything you needed for the bathroom? Actually, I ran into Jessica there, I said, watching her face carefully for any reaction. We had an interesting conversation. Amanda's expression didn't change immediately, but I noticed a slight tensing around her eyes. Oh, that's nice. How is she doing? She asked me how I was handling the situation with Derek, I said, continuing to watch her face. She seemed surprised when I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. The change in Amanda's expression was immediate and dramatic. All the color drained from her face. Her mouth opened slightly as if to speak, but no words came out, and her entire body language shifted from relaxed to panicked in an instant. Ryan, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. So I'm curious, I continued, cutting off whatever explanation she was about to offer. Who is Derek, and why did your best friend think I knew about your relationship with him? Amanda opened and closed her mouth several times, clearly struggling to find words that might somehow minimize or explain away what Jessica had revealed. But there was no innocent explanation for what I'd learned, and we both knew it. I can explain, she finally managed to say. I hope so, I replied, because according to Jessica, you've been having an affair with Derek for 3 months, discussing it with her the entire time and lying to her about having told me. She thought thought we were in counseling together, working through your affair with my knowledge and support." Amanda's hands were shaking as she tried to process how completely her web of lies had unraveled with a single accidental conversation in a hardware store. It's not what it sounds like," she said, though her voice carried no conviction. "Then what is it?" I asked, "because it sounds like you've been cheating on me with a coworker while lying to both me and your best friend about it." The conversation that followed was exactly as devastating as you'd expect. Amanda admitted to the affair, claimed it had just happened and that she'd been planning to end it, insisted that she loved me and wanted to save our marriage, and begged for forgiveness and another chance. But the lies had been too elaborate and systematic for me to believe this was just a momentary lapse in judgment. She'd created fictional counseling sessions, lied to Jessica about my knowledge and reaction, and maintained an elaborate deception for months while I lived my life completely unaware that my marriage was a sham. "The affair is bad enough," I told her, "but the lies make it impossible for me to ever trust you again. You didn't just cheat on me. You created an entire false reality for everyone involved." Amanda spent the next several hours alternating between tearful apologies, angry defensiveness, and desperate attempts to minimize the significance of what had happened. But there was no coming back from the level of deception I discovered, and she seemed to realize that as the conversation progressed. I told Amanda that I wanted her to move out of our house while we figured out the logistics of divorce. The level of systematic lying made it impossible for me to believe anything she said about wanting to work on our marriage or being genuinely remorseful about the affair. Amanda moved in with a different friend, not Jessica, whose friendship with Amanda had been irreparably damaged by the discovery that Amanda had been using her as cover for lies and manipulation. Jessica called me a few days later to apologize again and to let me know that she'd told Amanda she couldn't continue their friendship. "I feel like such an idiot," Jessica said during that phone call. "She was using me to process her guilt and get validation for her affair, while lying to me about your reaction and making me think I was supporting you both through a difficult time." The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Amanda's relationship with Derek ended shortly after our separation, apparently unable to survive without the excitement and secrecy that had fueled it initially. She tried several times to contact me about reconciliation, but I'd learned too much about her capacity for elaborate deception to ever consider trusting her again. Jessica and I maintained a friendship through the aftermath of the divorce. She'd been as much a victim of Amanda's manipulation as I had, and we both needed to process the experience of discovering that someone we'd trusted had been systematically lying to everyone in her life. She provided valuable perspective during the divorce proceedings and helped me understand the full extent of Amanda's deception. 6 months after the divorce, I learned through mutual acquaintances that Amanda had started dating someone new and was telling people that our marriage had ended because I was controlling and couldn't handle her having male friends. The revisionist history was predictable but still frustrating. Some people will rewrite any narrative to avoid taking responsibility for their choices. I'm in a relationship now with someone who values honesty and direct communication above everything else. We've talked extensively about what happened in my previous marriage, and she understands why transparency and trust are so important to me. When she tells me about her day, her friendships, or her work relationships, I know I'm getting the truth because we've built a foundation where lying would be more difficult than being honest. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that betrayal often involves more than just the primary deception. Amanda hadn't just had an affair. She'd created an elaborate web of lies that involved multiple people and fictional scenarios. She'd manipulated Jessica into providing emotional support for her affair while lying about my knowledge and reaction, creating a false reality where everyone thought they were supporting a couple working through relationship problems. Looking back, I'm grateful that Jessica accidentally revealed the truth, even though the circumstances were painful and awkward for both of us. Without that chance encounter at Home Depot, I might have continued living in ignorance while Amanda maintained her affair and her elaborate system of lies indefinitely. The experience taught me to pay attention to inconsistencies and changes in behavior. But more importantly, it taught me the value of surrounding myself with people who are fundamentally honest. Jessica's assumption that I knew about the affair revealed her own integrity. She wouldn't have been comfortable keeping such a significant secret from me if she'd known I was unaware of it. Sometimes the most devastating truths are revealed through the most ordinary conversations with people who have no intention of hurting you. In this case, Jessica's casual comment about a situation she assumed I knew about became the key that unlocked months of systematic deception and allowed me to reclaim control over my own life.